We can almost give kudos to, President Obama on that national government institutional level of saying, how can we help families have better health care? How can we help families have pre-kindergarten and kindergarten for everyone within the society, so that hopefully that would impact the criminal justice system in a different way. But even given that, I'm talking, as we may mention to the last segment, about the disproportionate amount of people that are in prison, the disproportionate amount of people that are in the criminal justice system, the behavior that those who are in authority, such as police, and in the actions of Martin or Brown or Gardner or the kid in Cleveland that was shot, how do we have a more humanitarian way within our criminal justice system, along with the positive and good things about the system? Because it does keep order. If we can imagine it not having a criminal justice or policing, it would be chaotic. It would be running amok with people out in the society. So it does a good job, but we need to look at the weak parts of it and try to bring some reform. I think reform is the issue. How can we change it so it can improve? Because there's definitely a disproportionate amount of it that then would make sociologists and social psychologists see that it appears to be disproportionate to African Americans and other minorities, and or in that minority group, it can be any ethnic group or the bashing of gay brothers, lesbian sisters, or anyone that might consider themselves marginalized within the society in which we live in. So that becomes very crucial to look at, I think, within the society.
You know, Dr. Sanford, let's look at some of the solutions. I would imagine that you've been involved with a large number of folks dealing with solutions and et cetera.
Yes.
Let's use the rest of this time to think in terms of how do we move toward solving some of the issues that we have here. Certainly we can't do it on this show, but at least give us some ideas to the path that we could possibly take in terms of trying to bring some answers to some of the problems that we have.
Yes. Well, just as I would like to share as I open up with my experience of working with the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, just as this chief of police here in Davidson County convened with other ministers, and we had a discussion about the Ferguson issue so that people could have some clarity about community type of service from policing and how that could possibly not occur here and be proactive. So one of the solutions, I think, is having a good community relationship with authorities such as the police officers and the mayor and that group of people, so that we can have some continuity on understanding the issue, the concern, and the problems within the community. Second, coming from that framework of law enforcement agencies, we have to understand that really there is a lot of deviance because of the low income, because of family breakdown. People are being deviant. They might have more weaponry out in the community than even the police force. So I can see how they can go into situations and be very fearful when they go in there. I think we would be too. But that said, how can we then be proactive in taking a change within the criminal justice system to get our mayor and the governor to understand that we improve conditions within the social structure, meaning the communities, and helping families, and being innovative programs and innovative policing. How can we improve those conditions? A third thing, of course, is that a solution is that, of course, education. And I think from pre-kindergarten through high school, how can we better inform our kids about what happened in the past so that we can have a better type of society presently? You know, here we are, we've talked about the movie Selma. How can we get people to go and talk about that, see the connection as to what occurred during that time is very similar to what we are watching right now that has happened with Martin and Garner, and what happened with the whole issue in Ferguson with the Brown case. And or going back earlier at the Emmett Till case, 1954-55, or during the Civil Rights Movement. But the issue today is
during Nat Turner's insurrection, which is to say that that's and I think you've said that.
That's right.
It's a part of American institutional kind of thing. Very good.
Absolutely. From slavery to now, we've seen some of those same patterns. And so we need people who are in authority to understand those patterns so that then they can look at the present system that we're in and then bring about change. As recently as last night with President Obama, he mentions that in the State of the Union, that we might have different perspectives on looking at what happened in Ferguson or the Brown case, but if we can deconstruct it and at least come to some commonality of what we agree on, we might be able to make some advancement. And I think that's another solution as well. But we have to understand the issues and concern, understand the patterns, and see that pattern, and then have some solution to it. And then understand that race is still a part of social structure. It's a part of the American value system. When we think in terms of how we value education, how we value science and going to Mars, people in America value racism. I mean, it's a part of this society, and we have to understand that to then say we still need programs to deal with it. Absolutely,
right?
But you have to understand.
It's not going away, but you can mitigate it by with certain programs and certain attitudes and understandings and acceptance.
Absolutely.
Very good.
But we have to understand it as a solution. And what has happened here in America historically, we like to sweep it under the rug, so to speak, or not to have a true dialogue. When I say true dialogue, I mean, we have to understand the terms, the concepts of what is prejudice, what is stratification, what are some of the disparities of someone who has and someone who doesn't have. One of the questions I might ask sometimes in my class, why would someone spend $15,000 to $20,000 to send their kids to a first grade, second grade elementary school, so that they can be in a social environment where just the kids are reinforcing learning in the same way. They don't have to be ostracized by trying to be a good student. And that's what they are spending it for. Can't be too much content different, but how can we have systems like that that can help that infrastructure of everyone that goes to the public schools in the same way? So that would then help the criminal justice system. There might be some interplay with police officers going into the public just in their regular clothes, helping out with coaching, helping out with doing it, so they can see that authority figures are there to help, not to be an agent against them. So we need to come up with innovative types of solutions, and I think it's all in the understanding of it, the history and the social science of understanding the problem as a system.
And Dr. Sanford, let me thank you over the last minute or so that we have here dealing with this problem, because I think you've been here before and we've talked about it from this perspective, but I think that you do bring a fresh and a new understanding in terms of some of the things that happened that had some impact upon the system itself. And I want you to know that I certainly appreciate that, because we've dealt with this, as we've said, on many, many occasions. And I think that over the last 30 years, it's always been the same, African Americans in the criminal justice system, and et cetera, and et cetera. But I think that people might be coming to an understanding. And I think it's because people like you and others have been able to bring a different perspective in terms of some of the issues that we have to face. And that's why I want to thank you and for being here with us today. And let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning. Thank you and welcome to the show today. We're fortunate to have with us to talk about overcoming negative attitudes and conditions, Pastor K. Walker, who will give us some information relative to his background, education, and experiences. Ms. Sonia Brown, Minister Sonia Brown, who will also talk about some of her experiences from her book, From Prison to Praise. And of course, Mr. Ricky Waller, who will give us some information relative to how to overcome addiction by dealing with his book, Still High. And of course, we're simply glad to have all of you here with us today. And Pastor Walker, since you know these individuals in a real sense, why don't you give us sort of a summary in terms of why they are here with us today and some of the things that you think that they might be able to bring to this particular show. And then after this first segment is through, then we'll go through the background education for each of them, and then we'll have them talk about some of their experiences.
All right, Dr. Haney, thank you once of all again for allowing us to be on the show today. I actually met Minister Sonia Vaughn Brown through Facebook. She had sent me a message on Facebook telling me about her book and everything. I guess she had been reading some of my posts or what have you, and seeing the mindset that I have. But she sent me a message on Facebook about a book that she had put out and everything. And of course, you know, from all the various shows we've done over the years, I'm always interested in people who have experienced negativity in life and have endured that negativity, and at the end result is they overcame that negativity. So when she contacted me on Facebook, I was very interested in her story, and from prison to praise and all of that. Have not had a chance to get the book and read the book. But first thought I had was, man, I need to see if I can get you on comments with Dr. James Haney. So when that became possible, that's when I had contacted her about coming on here, and I'm glad she decided to show up and come out here today. And,
very good.
And then, of course, Minister Ricky Waller, been knowing him for a few years here, and a very good friend of mine, you know, that minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ, doing some serious work out there in the community, in the streets, trying to redirect the pathways of some of these young guys that's, you know, trying to, you know, maybe trying to experience the path that he has experienced and has overcome in his life. So, and that's what brings us here together, just to let the world know, basically, you know, who these people are and what they're doing.
Very good. And of course, let's start off with you, Minister Waller, by having you to give us some information in reference to your background, education, and experience. And Minister Brown will do the same in terms of her background, education, and experience. And by that time, we should be out of this first 6-minute segment of the show. And then we'll come back and we'll start with you, and we'll have you to talk about some of your experiences dealing with overcoming negative attitudes and conditions. Let's do it from that perspective.
I want to thank you for allowing me to be here, Dr. Haney, and my good friend, Pastor Kevin Walker and Sister Sonia. I thank God for this opportunity. I grew up in West Nashville, and I was a young man that I was interested in sports. I loved sports back then. And I went to high school. By the time I got to high school, I mean, I went there and I was already unaware that I didn't even know who I was at that time. So that's just a little briefing of growing up, and before I knew I was in high school, and then being captured, being innocent out there in the world. Man, it's amazing what being transformed can do for you. And so I'm just glad to be here to share some of the things that would be beneficial to others as a result of what I've been through.
Okay, very good. Minister Brown, let's have some statements from you in reference to that, and then we'll have this first break, and then we'll come back and we'll deal with it.
Dr. Haney, I want to also thank you for having me on the show, as well as Pastor Walker invited me on. But I grew up here in Nashville, and then at a very younger age, I moved to Murfreesboro, where I went through some various changes as well. My younger years, I fell prey to molestation. My younger years, which molded me in the wrong sense for a minute, which made me make some bad choices and led me down the road to smoking crack for a while. So I was lost for a little while during my earlier years, but thank God that He did some transformation on me, and some things changed in my life that made me come on back the right way.
And so, Pastor Walker, over the last 10 seconds that we have here, you think that we've got some good information here today in terms of how people might be able to overcome some difficult problems in their lives?
Oh, we got some excellent information coming from some people that has been through that pathway and have overcome.
Very good. And of course, we're going to take this first commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Pastor K. Walker, Ministers Waller and Brown, in reference to their abilities to overcome negative attitudes and conditions. And let us start with you, Minister Waller, and give our audience some information in reference to your book and how you came to write that book and some of the experiences dealing with the book. And of course, Ms. Brown will do the same, and then we'll have Pastor Walker to sort of summarize that aspect of it, and then we'll be through with this second segment.
All right. What happened with me with this book, when it came out, it was as a result of me overcoming the lifestyle that so many people are caught up into, and that is the street life. The street life is a trap that I didn't fall in, I didn't walk in, I ran into it because it was so attractive. And it's amazing of the things that a person can see and could desire it, such as I did as a little boy playing out in the yard with my basketball, just as innocent as I could be. And I saw guys standing on the corner, and they looked like they was enjoying themselves. They were styling, they were profiling, they was laughing, they was celebrating what they were doing. But they had no clue that there was a young boy watching them that happened to be me. And no matter what I was doing in the yard, I continued to watch them, and I was playing with my ball. I continued to watch them, and I got better with my basketball. And I became so good with the basketball that I thought maybe that's what I would pursue. Little did I know the power that I saw with what they were doing was more stronger than the basketball I had in my hand. And so the game fell in my hand, and I would say that because it's a trap. And I ended up taking over the community during my era, and people started to follow me, and they all ran into the ditch as I did. But God brought me out, turned my life around, and from being addicted for 20 plus years of my life, and now I've been delivered for 22 years. And it's good to tell somebody that you can come out. So this book was placed in motion. God ordained the book. And I just want to say to the people out here that's in the world that there's hope.
Yes.
And I wrote this book, and it says my heartfelt dedication to the people that I understand. I understand the people that are in a trap. I know what it means to be locked up in your own community. And this is without being behind bars. I was locked up in my own community, entrapped. And thank God that one day came that I got out of it, and it was only through the grace of God. I'm gonna say this, and I know it's not easy, but it can be done. I had got so out of control, and I still had the basketball in my hand, but now I'm a supplier of my community. And so as life moved on, make a long story short, I ended up on 16th and Joe Johnson. I come off of 40th in West Nashville. Ended up on 16th and Joe Johnson one night, and the Spirit of God spoke to me, which I didn't even know. And told me to go to church. And all I can think about was going to church just as I was. So I'd been up all night, and so when the morning sun came out, I just ended up going to the church. I put me a suit on, and I went on up into the church. But the thing about how I went, I brought my trouble with me, because I used to hear people say trouble wouldn't last always and things like that. So I brought drugs with me to the church and did drugs in the church and things like that, because the pain was so severe, I was willing to try anything except what I've already been doing. So that's just the take about this book, man. I thank God that he inspired me to write this book so it can help a generation of young people, as Pastor Walker was saying. You know, he's a very good friend of mine. I'm very inspired by what he has done before me. And it calls me to just continue to push on, because he spoke about God a lot. And I knew then, I said, now here's a man that speaks about God no matter who's around. Right. And I was inspired by that, because when I was on drugs, I used to do drugs everywhere I went. I mean, that's just the way, it was a way of life. I did it every day. I was addicted. It had control of my life. That's why they call it a controlled substance, because it will control your life, or at least that's what it did for me.
Okay, Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Minister Brown.
Thank you, Dr. Haney. I too, I wrote my book for therapeutic reasons. and to let other people know that no matter how far down the wrong road you go, God's arms are long enough to reach you. And me, I was molested as a child by a family member. Then I married at a young age, 16 years old, and married to try to get out of the house, and happened to marry a pedophile, and he impregnates my 13-year-old babysitter, and the baby born on my birthday, and so I was too young to deal with any of that. So I was emotionally scarred, and turned to crack myself, and I smoked crack for almost 15 years and went down the wrong road. But it's amazing that no matter how far down the wrong road you go, God will still have his hand on you. I knew at a young age that I was supposed to be one of God's preachers. But I couldn't figure out, when I would get high at the crack house, I would sing His Eyes on the Sparrow, or I'm Still Holding On, and would scare people, because I liked to read the Bible when I was high, that sort of thing. But I didn't know that God was just instilling some things in me to take with me once he delivered me. So even in writing the book, you know, I got cut off from my family. A lot of my family members didn't like the book for whatever various reasons. But the thing about it is, God taught me a long time ago that we all go to some kind of prison. The enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And he do that by setting up all kinds of prisons for you. Emotional prisons, financial prison, relational prison, you know, getting unhealthy relationships. And of course, a financial prison, living from paycheck to paycheck or no paycheck at all. But what God taught me was, no matter what type of prison the enemy set up for you, the key to any prison is your praise. So my book is set out to show somebody else that you can be molested. You can be married to the pedophile. You can have a crack addiction, whatever. But when you turn it over to God and let him transform your life, he can make a mess into a masterpiece, because he did it for me. I am now 19 years clean off crack. I'm the owner of Authentic Tax Service for the last 9 years. And as well as I've been the paralegal for the same district attorney that sent me to prison on and off for the last 12 or 13 years. So, you know, God can turn a thing around.
And you've got a story.
Right.
And I certainly appreciate the three of you with that. And so what we're going to do, we're going to take this second commercial break, and then we'll come back and we'll have Pastor Walker to make some statements, and we'll go back and use this last 10 minutes to talk about things that you think that might help our audience to overcome whatever problems that they might have. And I think that what you're doing is exactly what we're trying to do here. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Pastor K. Walker, Minister Brown, and Minister Waller in reference to overcoming negative attitudes and conditions. And let's see, Pastor, let's start with you by having you to make some statements in terms of some of the things that we've already talked about, and then we'll have Minister Waller to give us some information, and then come back and let Minister Brown end it for today, because I think she's got some extraordinary kind of information that's chilling in a real sense. Let's start with you then.
Dr. Haney, you know, a lot of times people that get caught up in these various types of traps in life, they caught up and they don't realize that there's a way that they can overcome them. You know, of course, my own story, you know, people know, you know, no shame in my game about my 17 plus years of drug addiction and being set free from it for 28 years now, because God's power, you know, stepped into my life and broke those chains of bondage. And to know that there, not only myself, but there are countless numbers of others whose God has stepped into their lives and broke the chains of bondage, you know. And a lot of people don't realize, you know, especially like in Minister Waller's situation, he was addicted to the lifestyle of selling drugs before he got addicted to the actual drug itself.
That's it. Mm-hmm.
So there's an addiction that goes along that a lot of people don't even realize, that they're just addicted to that lifestyle of making money, the fast money, making so many thousands of dollars a day and stuff like that, that it's so hard to break those chains. I mean, prison has a way of breaking it for you when they put you in there. Now you go from $1,000 a day to 17 cents an hour, you know, working in the prison system. But, you know, but the reality of it is that a lot of people are entrapped, and that's why we have shows like this, so that people can understand that there are people that have gone through what you've gone through, and they have not despaired, they have not given up hope, but they have actually made a decision, turned their lives to God, and allowed God to guide them through the processes of life and bring them to places that many of us would not have even imagined when we was caught up in the midst of our madness that we would ever arrive at. And that's why it's so great to have people like this to come on here and to share their information, share their stories. And I don't want to take up their time, so I'm just going to be quiet.
Okay, Minister Waller.
Okay. Yeah, what I like to say about this particular high, because most people love to get high. After trying it one time and like it, that's it. Once a person tried and like it, it's a possibility that they'll try it again and again. So it took one hit for me to try. And after doing it for all those years, and God knew that I love to get high. That's what I like about the God that I serve. I didn't know him, but I had to try him. And he introduced me to this high. He said, Ricky, I have a high for you. And if you don't like it, you can always go back to the one that you love the most. Well, what God showed me, that he knew how to set me up. See, I've been set up before by the enemy, and he broke me down. But God also can set you up. And he know that one particular high that I've been looking for, I wanted the one that lasts the longest, the one that lasts 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That's the high he introduced me to. And the word says, oh, taste and see that the Lord God is good. And that's what happened. I had that taste. And so once he gave me and instilled that high into me, he realized that there's so many people that love to get high that I thought it was time for me to introduce them to the greatest high of them all. And that's why it's called Still High. And I love this book because it is here to help others. And you know, once I got finished with it, I rejoiced because I felt like that somebody might be able to get information that will help them instead of being afraid of. Try something like this. It's good for you. It'll work. I haven't seen anything that can top it. That's the only thing about this high. I haven't seen anything that can match it. It's like, why would I have to go looking for something that I already have?
That's right.
That's what happened. You know, the drugs beat me down so bad that I thought I was going to use the rest of my life. But let me say this. It all came from me watching somebody else. So we have to be mindful of what we do in front of others.
That's right.
I had a cousin that used to do drugs, and he didn't mean no harm. But he needed someone to go in the bathroom with him while he tied the sock around his arm, and just so happened, he chose me to do it. And I got excited about it, because once I tied the sock around his arm, he would take his instrument out and take some water and put it in a top, put the powder in it, light a match up under it, and I was excited about what I saw. And then when he drew it up to fix it, to get ready to shoot it in his arm, he would tell me after he stuck the needle in his arm, he said, now loosen the sock. And then he would push it in, and then he would take it out and turn around and look at me. And this is what he would say to me: "Don't you never do this." And I'm thinking, why would you say don't never do something that it looked like you're enjoying? And all I could think about at that young age is that one day I'm gonna get a chance to do that. Well, I grew up, he went to prison, he came back out, he would go to prison and get back out. And finally, this time he was in prison when the drug ended up in my hand. He sent me a letter and said he heard about I was using heroin. I didn't know what I was gonna say when he got back because he didn't stay very long. He was a thief. They don't keep you very long when you go out stealing. So, but anyway, when he got back, I shared with him, I said, yeah, I'm doing it, but I'm not doing it the way. I never stuck a needle in my arm, but I snorted it for all those years, and it gave me the same result. It beat me down.
Right.
Yes. Mr. Brown, Minister Brown.
Well, from prison to praise, I just want everybody to know that whatever prison you're in, just learn how to praise your way through. You know, the book is actually available on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles because it's very anointed. Because I've been through so many different prisons. Like I said before, the molestation and everything. But the good part is about where I am now. Because I learned how to praise my way through. I'm an entrepreneur. You know, I've been the paralegal for the district attorney, because you got to think, you know you serve an awesome God when he can make your enemies your footstool. The same district attorney that sent me to prison is the same one that I was working for and still do some work for from time to time now, as a matter of fact. But that just goes to show when we learn how to praise our way through, God can turn some things around for you. Because life will try to beat you down and make you think that I can never do any better, that I'm so doped out that this is all, or even the things you talking about, watch what we do around other people. Even when we've heard so long, you're going to grow up and be just like your daddy. You're going to grow up and be just like your mama. Well, the buck stops with you. Any generational curse that has been bestowed upon a person, we cast that out. Because when you learn how to praise, you can praise your way through any prison that he done set up for you. And there was a lot of things in my life that I had to overcome. Even with me opening my business up. And I feel like I'm pretty successful. I've been open 9 years. I own a tax office, and it was amazing because in order for me to get my tax office, I had to turn in my fingerprints. And I knew that my fingerprints wasn't no good. But the same district attorney that sent me to prison wrote a letter about my integrity.
Wow.
And sent that in appeal because they turned me down at first. You know, the woman saw my fingerprints. She was like, you can't open no tax office. But whatever God had for me is for me.
That's right.
So my old boss, Attorney John Price, love him dearly. He wrote a letter and appeal to the IRS on my behalf. And they overturned the decision and allowed me to open up 9 years ago. Wow. And I've been going strong ever since. I think we do about 1,000 tax returns a year. So, and I'm the best at it. Let me tell you. That's why I named it authentic, because I'm the real tax place. But people need to know that God can turn some things around. He can turn some things around, but sometimes we get so, the world beats us down so that we think that we can't do any better, but I beg to differ. No matter how far down the wrong road you go, God's arms are long enough to reach you.
Pastor Walker, let me thank you for bringing these individuals by here to talk about overcoming. And I think that the information that they are given is information that can go very far in terms of helping others. And I think that they've been an inspiration not only to themselves, but they've been an inspiration to me as well as my audience this morning. And so let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning. Thank you and welcome to the show today. The topic this morning is women giving back. And we're fortunate to have with us 3 women that are indeed giving back to the community and helping others. Ms. Clemmy Greenlee. Ms. Greenlee has been with us on many, many occasions, and it was her decision to decide to bring with her the 2 women that are with her this morning. And so, Ms. Greenlee, let's see if we can have you to make some statements in reference to these women that you have with us, Ms. Shamika Turner, as well as Ms. Pinkerton, and to give us some information in reference to them, and then they'll give us some information about their background, education, and some of the things that they're involved with and why they are giving back. Let's do it from that perspective.
Yes, sir. First of all, Dr. Amy, let me just thank you for having us beautiful women on your show this morning. Just want to thank you. But yes, I'm honored to do this here. This is my beautiful, beautiful friend, Shamika Turner. She's has her own organization, Lounge Heart Awareness, which she will be talking about, and the lovely, lovely Thelma Sunshine, who has her own catering business, which she will be talking about. And it's women that's giving back to the community never stopped. And I just wanted to show how important it is to see people that don't really be out there to get recognized, that it is soldiers out here that has a heart that wants to give back to the community. And this is why we're here.
Very good. And let's start with you, Ms. Turner, to have you to give us some information relative to your background, your education, and some of your experiences. And then, of course, Ms. Thelma Sunshine will give us essentially, Pinkerton, will give us essentially the same kind of information in terms of her background, education, and experience. And by that time, we should have used up the 6 minutes, and then we'll come back for an 8-minute segment. Let's start with you.
Okay, thank you, sir, for having me here today. And Clemmy, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I have a background in criminal justice administration. I have 2 degrees, a master's degree and an undergraduate degree from MTSU. And all of that is being worked now, not in the criminal justice field, but in giving back to the community. What I've done is taken that education and coupled it with fitness, with the actual food that God has growing for us in the earth to heal our bodies, to help grow strong bodies. And so I take all of that information and I use it in the community to share the information and to just help other people get to their healthy being.
Very good. And of course, Ms. Pinkerton.
Yes, I'm the 7th child of 8, born to Miss Doll Harris. I'm a nursing assistant and a